The sea breeze brushed against their cheeks with the sting of salt and the warmth of the sun as a group of life-affirming youth sailed across this vast expanse of azure. The laughter of Jack and his 4 friends echoed over the sailboat, their gazes filled with the joy of a weekend adventure and the excitement of freedom. Yet, in the midst of this carefreeness, Lydia's brow couldn't help but tighten. The uneasiness that flickered in her eyes was like a dark cloud floating in the sky, small but impossible to ignore. She had long since learned to trust such instincts. They accompanied her like shadows, silently telling her that a storm was coming. Soon the sky began to fade, the sunlight was swallowed by dark clouds, and the sea lost its usual gentleness and serenity. The waves began to bump up the sailboat, like giant sea dragons, toying with the uninvited guest. "Look over there." Tom pointed to the overcast clouds rolling in not far away, a hint of excitement but more fear in his voice. Everything was becoming too fast. Like a crazed beast, the gale began to gnaw ferociously at every inch of the schooner. Jack and his friends set to work trying to get the sails down, but like impatient giants, the storm surged on without waiting for them to prepare. The rain flew across the water like bullets, the water churned in huge waves, and the violent rocking had everyone clinging to anything on the boat that could give them an ounce of stability. Not one of them was a true seaman, and the fury of the sea was to them nothing less than the whine of doom. Thunder boomed, and a bolt of lightning split the sky, illuminating the panic on Lydia's face as her vision was completely obscured by the white spray of water. The waves tried again and again to drag them into the bottomless abyss. The sailboat was thrown to pieces like the helpless fluttering of metal shards in the gale. The pain, the fear, the cold water felt like the fingers of death touching every inch of their skin. A giant wave rose high above the sky, tilting down like a mountain, and the last glimmer of heavenly light disappeared under the shadow of this giant wave. As this dark mountain of water fell, a massive force threw Jack out of the sailboat and his consciousness began to blur as he spun underwater. Before he lost the last vestiges of lucidity, he felt the touch of an arm, and he imagined that it might be the mercy of Neptune or the pull of the abyss. However, when the waters returned to calm, all that was left behind were a few broken planks and 5 desperately struggling beings, their screams and cries for help swallowed up by the winds of unbridled derision, and everything was eclipsed by the fury of the storm. Falling from the dark ocean, consciousness danced wildly in the storm like a kite with broken strings. The salty breath, the piercing cold, and the fearful breathing, they all stood still in the moment. Jack struggled to open his heavy eyes, and each blink felt like it took all his strength. The dawn of the first sun seemed like a heavy hammer falling on their exhausted bodies. In the midst of this deathly struggle, he saw a miracle, a magnificent cruise liner steadily dividing the waves, slowly emerging from the mist like a submarine. A spark of hope rose in Jack's heart, but it was laced with the same unspoken foreboding as the flash of lightning that had led them into the abyss. He waved his arms as hard as he could for the rest of his life, trying to rouse his companions and call out to the huge ship. The cold water moistened his throat, but finally there was a response. One by one his companions, driven by survival, found each other. 4 figures trembled and converged into a desperate hand reaching out to the land of the living. They were hitched, but there was no rescuer to greet them, no celebrations or cheers from the survivors. The ghost cruise ship was as empty as its name implied. The sound of their footsteps on the deck of the ship echoed hollow and shrill. Beneath them, the canopies left long, mirror-deep shadows, as if foretelling something. The silence seemed to seep into the blood and freeze time. On the deck, benches and chairs were strewn about in disarray, as if there had been a celebration that had been brought to an abrupt end without a sound, and the laughter and whispers of the party had turned to silent mockery. The evaporating water in the pool left stains of varying depths. They were the remains of ripples of the past. In the distance, a door swung slowly, its swaying out of sync with that of the ship, as if the space inside belonged to another world. Jack led the way into a spacious lounge, the air filled with the strange scent of sweat mixed with perfume, and through the heavy curtains they could faintly see the gray light of day outside. Sitting in the center of the cabin was a piano, its black and white keys covered in dust. In the windless air, the keys actually played an intermittent dying, whimpering wail. Every corner, every inch of space, was like a silent spectator witnessing the secrets of the cruise ship where those abandoned ghosts wept and raged. They found the captain's wheelhouse, a wooden door trembling gently as if to greet them. A tattered logbook lay on the rotting wooden table, the wind through the shattered windows turning the pages, and the unmanned wooden model of the ship swaying in the wind as if to unveil a page of that dusty history. Unbeknownst to them at the time, that was what they were about to uncover, a soul buried deep beneath the skin of a ghostly cruise liner with endless curses and cries from the past. A whirlpool, a secret, a vortex of panic that was about to sweep them away. In the middle of the ship, they vaguely heard the low sound of horns. Were they the call of the dead, or a deeper call of terror? Struggling through the darkness with all their strength, they finally find the lifeboat lurking in the depths of the abandoned cruise ship. Hope flickered in their hearts like a dancing spark. With trembling hands, the four survivors untied the lifeboat and pushed it out into the ocean, praying in their hearts that this time they could truly escape. Jack, Li Ting, Tom, and Sophie, none of them had the strength to speak, only each other's firm gaze exchanged beliefs. The sea wind was whistling in their ears, but their hearts were unusually calm. This was the first time they were so close to freedom since the beginning of the endless reincarnation. The boat's supplies were limited, but their hope was like a starburst. They began a new voyage, determined to get away from these cursed waters. The sun was rising and the climate seemed to be warming up. Just as they were about to celebrate, a distant cloud was intent on causing trouble. Strange ripples rose on the sea. This time it's not a strong wind, but something beneath the surface that's in violent turmoil. The current became more and more turbulent, and the lifeboat plunged into the torrent, shuddering and sailing helplessly. It was as if something was awakening under the deep sea. This fearful intuition made everyone's blood almost freeze. Then, was it an ear-splitting whine from the dark clouds, or the roar of an ancient beast? Suddenly a huge wave swept across the sea like a devil's hand, and the lifeboat staggered and flailed about it. It was in a sharp turn that Jack's hand slipped, and he watched as his friends were swept into an invisible whirlpool. Sharp whistling in his ears, flashes of white light before his eyes, followed by infinite darkness. For a moment, all hope, fear and despair for the future dissipated into the pitch-black tornado. When they woke up again, the sea breeze was still salty and wet, and the sunlight was once again covered by gray clouds. There was an extraordinary silence all around, and the shadow of the terror cruise stepped slowly neighboring in the afterglow of dawn. The lifeboat was gone, just like their memories, vanished after being erased by an invisible force. Once again they stood on the ancient deck of the ship as if they had never left. The endless cycle of reincarnation held them captive. They could not escape this cursed place. Each attempt to escape seemed only part of the cycle, only deepening their despair. And now, once again, they must find a way to escape. With new and painful memories, they returned to this ghostly cruise ship sailing the seas of death and despair. Each time they fail, they realize more clearly that true escape lies not in a lifeboat, but in lifting the curse of this endless cycle. Struggling repeatedly in the endless cycle, they begin to realize that to break the curse, they must delve deeper into its source. The failure of the lifeboat reinforces their belief that the cruise ship itself is the key to all the mysteries. Over the course of countless cycles, they gradually gather pieces of information about the origin of the curse. It is said that the cruise ship was once home to the fortune of a pirate captain who left behind countless conquests and killings in the waters before finally sinking with the ship into these cursed waters during a storm. In order to find the key to break the curse, Jack, Li Ting, Tom, and Sophie once again search every corner of the ship's cabin in depth, and every search is like a race against time. Just when they almost give up hope, Li Ting finds an old parchment map and a yellowed letter in a hidden drawer in the captain's cabin. The letter tells of the captain's fear of death and his obsession with wealth, for which he made a deal with a sorcerer and used black magic to permanently bind his soul to the cruise ship. The curse can only be lifted if the mysterious compass is found and returned to the location of the captain's most cherished treasure while he was alive. Following the guidance of the parchment map, they begin a new journey. Time seems to lose its thread in the cycle, but their determination never wavers. They encounter countless difficulties and challenges, including confronting ghostly crew members who have lost their minds in the cycle and solving one hidden riddle after another. After countless days and nights of hard work, they finally discovered the cursed compass in a secret room within the ship. When they placed the compass at the location of the treasure pointed out by the map, an invisible force seemed to rip through the waves, and a light rose from the bottom of the sea, illuminating the surroundings. At that moment, the entire cruise ship felt as if it was gripped by a huge force, and with a tremor and the dissipation of the dazzling light, the curse was finally lifted. The ghosts on the ship were released, turning into bits of light that dissipated into the air, and the cruise ship began to slowly sink, returning to the sea. As the ship sank, Jack and his mates felt the air around them gradually warm up and the water no longer cold and harsh. When the last light went out, a cursed cycle came to an end and they could finally leave these waters for real. The moment the sun rose, there was no sign of the cruise ship except the vast ocean. They used the remaining life-saving equipment to build a rudimentary raft and gradually drifted away with the tide. However,